Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Monique Bergener. I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Our topic today is ESG and Sustainable Procurement, Why Allstate Cares. Today's webinar is hosted by VeriKlick. Before we begin, these are the instructions on how to adjust your audio during the webinar. All attendees will be on mute throughout. These are the instructions for submitting a question in the Q&A section. Please post your question at any time during the event. Now, I would like to begin the webinar by introducing our featured host and guest panelist. Our host today is Gloria McLennan, who is our VeriKlick Strategic Initiatives and Operations Director. Our honored guest panelist today is Cheryl Harris, Chief Procurement Officer of Allstate. Welcome, everyone, to our February webinar.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are on our great earth. My name is Cheryl Harris, and I've actually been doing the work of a saint, I will say, in procurement for the past 32 years. Most recently, I now find myself at Allstate, where I'm the Chief Procurement Officer, which includes oversight of our business, supplier diversity, and sustainability programs. Prior to that, I spent 12 years as a managing director with Accenture, where I worked with Gloria McLennan for many years, and we were doing many of the same things there, really driving responsible procurement activities because we care. I am a graduate of Florida A&M University. I'm also a doctoral student at Benedictine University here in Naperville or Lisle, Illinois. And again, interestingly enough, plan on studying sustainability and the ESG journey as I go on in my professional career and in my future career, hopefully as a practitioner scholar. So I'm so glad to be with all of you today. And I will admit, I don't have all the answers, but it's one of the reasons why I agreed to come on today, is because I think it's going to take, us, not only the hosts, but people on this call to the call of what requires immediate attention, and that is ESG, to create a better world for all those that live in it. Thank you, Monique.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, and welcome. We're excited. Now let's begin our ESG and Sustainable Procurement, Why Allstate Cares. Gloria, over to you and Cheryl to begin the discussion.
Super. So Cheryl, again, thanks so much for joining us today. We've just been so excited about your topic and learning about Allstate's sustainability program and why Allstate cares. So if you could begin by sharing Allstate's strategic perspective and framework, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely, Gloria. So before I start my presentation, I really want to get people to bring both their hearts and their minds to the conversation. I'm going to ask all of us to not think about what is happening in the world today. What do we want to be happening for our children, for their children? And I will tell you, it's a focus on the hopes of tomorrow that fuels my passion and my commitment to this topic. And again, it's not specifically focused on the impact that I've had in the past, but rather the impact I will have on the future. And I connect this to my personal purpose and for being a steward for all of those that follow behind me. And so again, I'm just asking all of you to reflect on, if this topic is important, and I assume that it is because you're investing your time here, think about the why and make it personal. Larry Fink, who is, head of BlackRock, actually said in his 2022 letter to CEOs this year, he said, putting your company's purpose at the foundation of your relationships with your stakeholders is critical to long-term success. And so for me, the first part of this is knowing who your stakeholders are. And when you know your stakeholders, it then provides you with the opportunity to connect things to your personal purpose. And I believe that's where we all have a great opportunity. In 2020, Allstate went through the process of really thinking about where and how we wanted to have an impact. And we adopted, there's a white paper available to any of you, and I'm gonna bring the screen up momentarily, from the World Economic Forum. And they've actually created a framework that they're hoping that many global companies will align to, that will facilitate our collective ability to report and measure the impact of what we're all doing around sustainability, and more specifically ESG, and I'll describe that momentarily. When we think about their framework, you basically have ESG as your set of guiding principles. And for Allstate, those guiding principles align with our core values. We then drive accountability at all levels. And it's not just the work of procurement or our sustainability team to go out and push, the concept of sustainability or ESG into the organization, but it is the way that we work. It's who we are, and it's who we desire to be. And so we've structured that around 3 pillars: our purpose, our people, and then consideration for the planet. When you think about purpose, and we've talked about this quite a bit internally, it's very difficult for any single individual to connect to a company's purpose if they don't know their very own. And when we think about Allstate as a purpose-driven company, the thing that I want to, have you all know, and I'm going to give some facts very quickly. Global temperatures have risen about 2 degrees Fahrenheit. It's about 1.1 degrees Celsius between 1901 and 2022. But climate refers to more than an increase in temperature. It also includes sea level rise, changes in weather patterns like drought and flooding, and then those changes impact water, transportation, wildlife, agriculture, ecosystems, and human health. So it's all interconnected. You might ask, why is Cheryl mentioning that? Why is that important? And the reason that that's important is because I never paid attention to weather for a day, when I was at any other company. As soon as I got to Allstate, I realized that, oh my God, we are impacted as an organization every single time there is a weather event. And I'm not sure what geographies you're from, but if you could type those in to the chat, I would really appreciate it. Because what I've seen living in the Midwest is that the storms are getting worse. The snow is worse, the ice storms, the tornadoes. And when you think about any time there, again, is a weather event, that's when I would say your typical insurance companies are supposed to be there to rescue you. Allstate doesn't see ourselves as just an insurance company. We are there to help our claimants and our policyholders recover and restore their lives to as much normalcy as we possibly can, as quickly as we can. And that is, a part of our purpose. So when I talk about purpose. And so we have to have, again, a commitment here. We have to have, sustainable business practices, because the increased severe weather has raised loss costs for us, you, auto and home insurance industries, and just the broad body of services that we all provide. And so again, I never thought about us being more than just an insurance company, but in fact we are. I will now say that's really about Allstate. And I'll get to sustainable procurement in a minute or two, but I really want to spend time on this slide because all of that then impacts where and how we disclose our information, to whom we're reporting it, and then how we're governing our organization as a company, right? Do we have good governance processes? And so I'm really proud to say that we, since 2003, have been transparently reporting our data around sustainable procurement practices on our website. Again, in 2003, I was still accustomed to your typical annual reports. But many companies that were on the front edge of this started reporting sustainability reports, pivoting to talk more about the numbers and talking about the long-term value creation they were trying to create. So I encourage all of you, if you have not had a chance to do so, please visit allstate.com/sustainability. And I only share that as, you know, a means to see current day practices. I'm not going to suggest that we have the best website or that we have the best practice. I'm very proud of the work that we've done. But if you need some insights into how to get started, I believe our website is a great introduction for that. Can you move to the next slide, please? So when we think about ESG, what does it mean to us? And I've talked a little bit about it. For us, the E is all about, of course, environment and making sure that we first understand the impacts of our actions on the environment and that we take steps to minimize, you know, in every way that we possibly can, from looking at our own impact on climate risk and how we manage climate risk versus return, how we look at energy and emissions within our own space and within the space of companies, and I'll get to this in our investment portfolio, how we look at the impact of our operations and our fleet on the environment. So are we as paperless as we can be? Are we using recycled paper and soy-based inks, for example, when we do have to print something? And again, when I go back to energy and emissions, and I think about, you know, many of our organizations have investment portfolios. Do you know the carbon footprint of your portfolio members or companies that you're investing in? I will say I've learned a lot even in the past 2 weeks on this topic because I've been so focused, and we'll get to the supply chain, right? We have almost 10,000 suppliers, $14 billion in spend, and I've been so focused on them that I was myopically thinking about, you know, pivoting to the S, the social impact, right? And it's where and how do we support communities and, you know, society at large to help improve their quality of life, how we can help create more shared value. If any of you have been tracking some of the changes that the Business Roundtable, which is a group of 187, I believe, CEOs here in the US, they pivoted their purpose statement from a single focus on creating shareholder wealth to being more inclusive of understanding who all of their stakeholders are and making sure that they invest the time, talent, and energy to have long-lasting societal impacts. Because it's when the society is healthy is when we see growth for everyone. So imagine that, you know, we have a population of constituents that live here in America more broadly, or even within your own cities. Well, if they're living in poverty, guess what? That community is not creating any economic impact. That community, possibly if you are a B2C business, they may not afford the opportunity to ever be your consumers. And so we're thinking more broadly about our social impacts. And for us, social impacts include our talent, their wellness, their development. It includes what we are doing more broadly around our inclusive diversity and equity strategy. And equity, very different from equality. Equality suggests that everyone should get their fair share. But that assumes that everyone is starting from the same point. And we realize that not everyone is starting from the same point, right? Some people, some groups have gotten a head start. So how do we then bridge that equity gap? We then think about us as the contributions that we provide through our Allstate Foundation, where we have recently added an